G'day everyone, and welcome back to part two of painting these Peasant Levy from Wargames Atlantic Baron's War range. In part one, we just gave you a bit of the intro with the boxes and a bit of a talk about the overall concept. And I asked for feedback in the first video, which had some really useful feedback. As far as format goes and length, I had some on both sides, but I had some other suggestions that I really appreciated, and a couple of people said the same thing, and it's given me a bit more sense of freedom. They don't actually need to see me physically put the paintbrush to the plastic or the metal or whatever, because what's happening is it's not my normal way of painting, and you're not actually seeing how I paint. So it's a kind of a bit fruitless, really, because I can't really show you how I paint because I paint so close into my body, as I explained in the first video, with my magnifying visor, etc., etc. And it would be, I can't photograph it in that way. And what I was doing wasn't how I normally paint. So like the guys said, they don't need to see me physically painting, but it'd be great just to me to come in at each step and explain what I'm doing and what colors I'm using and that kind of thing. So I think that's how we're going to go forward. I certainly feel a lot more relaxed and at ease about that way of doing it. So let's carry on from where we were. You can see in the background as well, I hope it works. I've just grabbed a bit of an offcut of MDF and thrown some white emulsion over it, just so the focus is hopefully not as distracted by miniatures at the back and work I'm doing at the back. The Huns that I've been working on that feature briefly in another video and will feature in a future video to come. So these guys, when I left you last time, I said I'm going to put the washers on, and that's what I've done. So grab a little pointer. So you can see they've had the overall brown wash, both figures have, but the bow and the spear have had these separate ink tense wood from scale 75 wash. And that helps bring out the wood tone, and you can see the washes have a slightly shiny finish, but that's fine. As I've reiterated before, ultra matte varnish, which you can get from a number of paint companies now, will totally kill that shine, so that's okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start to work on the skin, and basically I'm going to go over our underpainting on the flesh, faces and hands, that if you remember in the first video we did with like a red earth or a red oxide ink, and then that since had the brown wash put over it. And now I'm going to build back up, and I'm going to use I have used other flesh groupings or sets or whatever before, but at the moment this is in my current rotation. I'm going to start with pink flesh from scale color SC21. Then I'm going to highlight up. My next highlight layer is going to be golden skin from the same range, and then the final highlights will be pale skin from the same range. So the pink flesh will be going over mostly everything, but just leave in the darkest recesses the gaps between fingers and around the eyes and different places. So I'm leaving some of that shadow work and that underpainting to come through, and then the other two will be successive highlights going for tops of the cheeks, the forehead, the nose. There's no tip of the chin visible, so be working on the knuckles and joints and stuff like that, and places where the light might hit, and then final touches on the extremes of knuckles, fingertips, the extreme ends of the nose, the top of the forehead, things like that. And then the eyes and other details will get done later. So I'm going to stop here, and when you come back, I'm going to go and do some work on my, I'll just zoom out. I've got underneath there my wet palette. I've got a large one because I've usually got a bit on the go at once. So I think that's sort of kind of an A4-ish size. So I'm going to lay out these colours on there and start layering these chappies up with their flesh. I'll come back to you a bit later. Okay, guys, we're back. Done that flesh triad you saw. So it's like I said, it's layering over what's underneath. Now some of the paint, as I apply it, I thin it more, sometimes less, depending on the area, and we'll turn it. So I hope you can get, sorry about how the light goes a bit yellow. And these are very close up. They'll look better from a distance, but you can see we're sort of, it's not blending per se, but it's allowing what's underneath to come through. Okay, so, and here's our spearman. So the strongest highlights on the nose, the tops of the cheeks, the knuckles, the usual thing. And there they are. Okay, so you can see what a contrast there is now between the flesh. Now that's sort of highlighted up, and the remaining colours, how dark they are now they've had their wash. So in the process of painting that, I used a new brush. I was breaking in a new brush. This is we can get that. This is a Pro Art size 1 Renaissance Sable, made in England. Pro Art make all sorts of, look at that, very, I'd prefer probably more of a belly on that, like more of a bulge, as it were, at the base of the brush, but seemed pretty good for doing the faces. It just needs to be tamed a bit, brought to kept at a decent point, but yeah, good value for money, Pro Art stuff. Good value compared with like the uber priced like Winsor and Newtons and that kind of thing. Anyway, so what I'm going to do next, I'll probably use a different brush for that. Don't need such a fine point for doing the next step. So if you remember from our first video, these were the basic colours that we'd used for our blocking in: light earth, extra dark green grey, flat brown, and there's a grey for the feathers and a beige brown for the knife handle. So what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to take those, not highlighting yet. What I'm doing is I'm going to go back in over all the colours that were applied in the part 1 of the video, the other video, sorry. Yeah, I'm just going to apply those colours again, straight up. Nothing mixed in with them, but I'm going to leave the shadows, I'm going to leave the wash and the recess and stuff. And even that, just doing that will help to lift the figures a lot. But we won't leave it at that. We'll also, in the next step, I'll bring you back once I've reapplied these base colours. We'll talk about raising those up, perhaps a step or two more with highlighting and what I add in. Now there is a bit more to do with the faces, but I'm going to try and put some eyes in, and I'll talk about the brush I use and how I do that, and maybe a slight glaze in the cheek area, although you don't see much of their actual face, and maybe a slight hint on the lower lip, but there's not a lot to see. So, but anyway, first up, going back in, re-establishing those base colours, but leaving the shade. So hopefully it'll make sense when you see it next. Okay. Righto, and back with having gone over all those base colours and re-established them, and left lots of shade in the creases and things. Now at this stage it doesn't look too crash hot, because the like a lot of washes and inks and stuff, they're slightly shiny, so there's actually an unpleasant sort of shininess coming out from where there should be shadow. But that's all going to be resolved later on with the ultra matte varnish. But you can see how it's starting to come back up now. Okay, so yep, I've done that. Very dark green is still very dark. Be a good sort of rifles green, or the basis for it. Now, what I also did, you might notice on the hair, I grabbed a bottle of burnt umber from AK, and I put that on the hair, on the beard and the hair of these guys. And I also grabbed the light grey, the greeny grey, to do the feathers. And on this chap, it's actually probably didn't need doing it, but underneath, yeah, the handle of the knife was touched up with beige brown. So probably what I'll do with that beige brown is, it's, you know, it's out and it's been used once already. I'll probably mix that in with the burnt umber for the hair to get like highlights for the hair and the beard, rather than, I find with burnt umber, if you put in like an off-white or something like that, or a light grey, it will just make it look like they are grey, they're going grey. But yeah, I want them to have some sort of semblance of their youth still. So yes, this is this stage. So next thing to do will be, I think I might grab my, I think I need to keep going down this highlighting path. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a few different colors, to highlight type colors. I'm going to use like a creamy ivory. So you can use any sort of ivory color from any paint range to add into your base colors to lighten them up. I don't use white because it just goes, it's too extreme. I need something more subtle than that. So the sort of colors that you can I can recommend to use for creating highlights, to mix in with your base colors, is colors like Deck Tan, creamy sort of ivory colors, really pale like flesh colors. Another one is a color called Ice Yellow, which is available in a few different paint ranges, and I've got all those sorts of paints. So I mean, it's obvious that the sleeves and the leggings will need like a lighter ivory mixed in with that, and because they're quite light already, but that just needs a few highlights. But it'll be interesting. I'll probably, for the really dark greeny, that ultra dark green, I'll probably put in some Deck Tan, I think. But yeah, I might use sort of like an ivory with the other things. We'll see how it looks. I might mix it up a bit. But yeah, I'm going to go back, and what I did is I worked from my base coating. I worked from the lightest colors, base coating them in first. So the sleeves, and then the tunic, and then the leggings, and then the final dark green. So I'll work the same way, and we'll get these chaps highlighted up, probably like as many stages as like the face is, and I can show you that when we're done. Okay, see you then. Boy, well guys, this has been a crazy journey, and trying to figure out all this stuff, painting stuff for a nearly 68-year-old man who's not very good with phone cameras, and there's some funky things going on with the light. There's this strobing effect. Oh, man alive. Ay, ay, ay. Wobbles. I've got it on an arm now. Had some good advice, but I don't know if I got the right. Every time I brush against it to get to my water jar. Maybe I should keep this in just to show the trials that I have tried to paint around stuff. Anyway, I've highlighted up a lot of the green tunic already and the sleeves. Don't think I've done anything with the leggings. So I apologise about the to stretch. I have to move my water jar to a different spot, I think. Yo-ho. Yeah. Let's see. Now, have we got some of this flat brown? Is that it there? Thinking I might do some on these legs. Now, what have I got? Don't want it to go too pink, so I don't want to put anything too whitish in. So what happens if we chuck it in? I think this up here might be light brown from Vallejo. We'll give that a crack. Probably creates a colour a bit like tan earth, maybe. Probably not much different to beige brown. Yeah. My brush taps the phone. Oh, man. Oh, dear. I don't think this is going to work, guys. I'm trying, but I'm not succeeding. Josh from Swords and Sake gave me some advice about his rig and sort of having it out to the side, coming in from the side, which I've kind of set up, but I'm still running into problems. My brush is hitting the phone. Oh, man. Oh, well. Yeah, you might not learn much from any of this, but I truly am not very good at this painting in front of a camera. Just not very savvy with it. With my old Samsung Galaxy is probably a few years old now. There's probably better cameras now. See, my hand's not really relaxed either. I'm too conscious about hitting that phone. It's not bad. I like that colour. Seems okay. Ooh, no. Ish. No, that's too bright. Quarter. Come here. I don't have to overpaint that. You see what I mean about how I paint? So you know I've got my visor on as well, and my knuckles pushed into these padded things in the desk, and my arms pressed close against my body, so it gives me a solid base so that I'm not kind of reliant as much just on my back and my shoulders, because I've got a history of back problems anyway. So yeah, that's okay. Be a bit more light here. There we go, two over the top. These aren't like leader figures or anything. Command figures. So tap in the phone. I don't know if I can move it back further. I don't want to do that while I've got it on. Anyway, I'll probably stitch this little clip in just for a laugh. It's 5 minutes. so you can see the challenges of an old guy with this. Camera. Where's that black green? Is that on here somewhere? I can't find it on the palette. I might have to put out a fresh light. What's that? Looks more like a grey. Oh, what a laugh. Right, hang on. I'll pause here and see if I can bring it out a bit further and see if I can find that really dark green. All right, give it another crack. Yeah, it's not focusing too good, is it? Don't know where the focal point. Oh, there we go. There it is. Anyway, I'm not going to do a whole video of this because that's pretty dumb. let's chuck a bit of. Ooh, get a bit of deck tan in there. You gonna focus? No. No, even when I press the camera and try and use the. No. Anyway, for those who wanted to see me actually paint, I don't think it's going to happen because you can see the problems I'm having, and it gets me quite stressed too. And for me, that's not a good health thing. Really not good. The heart starts doing weird things, and not nice. Yeah, I'm still hitting the camera. Right, guys, so you get the idea. So this whole process could take quite a while, but yeah, I'm just using a. Let's see. Yeah, this will make everyone seasick. Okay, I'm going to include this in there just to show how hard I'm finding it. I mean, it's nobody's fault but mine. Just to convince you that I am trying, but it's not working for me. Yeah, so I'm going to paint him off screen and bring him back for each stage like we talked about. Yeah, I'm going to dip into different highlight things. I might get a colour that's the next tone up, or I might mix a colour in. Like I've got the brightest colour, I've got lightest here, and that I'd want to go. This is ivory from on the palette, ivory from AK, but it's the light's not reading how it reads to my eye. The camera's looking at it and thinking it's all yellowy, but trust me, it isn't like that. Yeah, so other things I might add in are on the palette too, like deck tan, and sort of other creamy and really light flesh tones are useful as well for that. Yeah, so there we go. I'll leave this in, and you guys can get an idea of the struggles I'm having. I'm not going to ask anyone to try and fix it because I don't think it can be fixed. I think I'd have to have someone with far more nous than me, and maybe have my own cameraman, but that ain't going to happen. All right, guys. Thanks for putting up with this. I'm going to get on and do some painting and show you what I've done and talk about the stages. All right. See you later. Okay, back again for the next round. Oh, I should call this video Comedy of Errors. But anyway, the painting's coming along. Even if the filming of the painting is a bit of a dead loss. But anyway, okay. So I've done all the highlights on these two chaps that I want to do. Now let me give you a twirl. Probably show up better in the final photos, but you can see I've highlighted the grey feathers with a bit of ivory. and highlighted up the hood and the leggings and stuff. Yeah. And then this chappy, he's had his highlights. Hang on a minute, I just need to get rid of a bit of extra noise in the other end of the house. Okay, just my son talking in the background. He's quite a talented painter himself, my son. And he'll probably inherit my paints and brushes and stuff, whatever. He's got quite a big collection of his own painted miniatures. But anyway, that's by the by. So here we are. We've highlighted this guy up as well. Adding sort of, I think with the greens I mostly added deck tan to them. And then I added just sort of lighter browns to that russet colour. And there's even, you might be able to spot like a little bit of, there's some little bit of subtle highlighting just with paint on the edge of that knife sheath just to bring it out a bit more, a little bit on the belt. It should all tie together a lot better when the matte varnish has gone on. The next thing I want to do is to put some eyes in and glaze in a little bit, although you can't see much of their faces because of the beards and the hood and whatnot, but just a little bit of cavalry brown is that I glaze in on, when I paint figures I glaze it on the lower lip and around the cheek sort of area, just subtly. And if they had exposed faces, I'd probably give them sort of like a stubble look as well, just with glazing in some German field grey very carefully over the top. But yeah, what I'll do is I've got a nifty brush here that a guy I did some work for a while ago just sent me as a kind free gift. It's the only Monument Hobbies brush I own, but as you can see, it's very, very long and thin. Number 1 sable brush made in Germany. So I'm going to use that to get some brown liner and just mark in those eye sockets, and then probably get some like an ivory color and dot in a couple of eyes, like the whites of the eyes. So how can I demonstrate that to you? So basically, I should have prepared something like a scrap of paper, but basically, so it's like I paint like a dark line very carefully in there, and then I get just on the very tip of my brush like a little bit of white or ivory, and I just dot it very precisely and carefully into the corners. Now you can just, if you want them looking a particular way, you can just put a dot in each corner of the eye. If you want them looking straight ahead, you have to be a bit more careful, and you might need to go back and touch up again. You put a dot in each side to have them sort of looking forward. I just keep going at it until it looks right, and if I make a mistake, if it goes out of the eye socket area, I just grab some of the flesh color and just put a line underneath for the eyelid to get the eye back to shape. So but everyone paints eyes differently. Some people do start with the white and then put a black dot in it, but I actually start with a real brown liner, which is a black brown color, and then put the white dots in. I think it's to me anyway, you got to be quite, either don't paint the eyes in and just leave the recesses dark from shading, or if you do paint them in, you got to always watch out for that fried egg look. You don't want their eyeballs to be absolutely bulging out of their heads. So unless you're painting a monster, I guess. Anyway, I'm going to go and do those little facial details, which I'm definitely not going to attempt to film. And then we'll talk about the little metallic touch-up bits that are coming up soon. All right. Okay, the little facial details have been done. some eyes and a bit of glazing in, extra cavalry brown glazed in and the cheek area, just to give it a bit more definition. You probably can't really even see this dude's eyes because of the lighting and the yeah, but trust me, they are there. Ooh, you can just about make them out, can't you? Anyway, okay, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do the metal work on these dudes. So there's not a lot, but this is what I've got out. So let's put down first on the spear. So we've only got really maybe a couple of buckles, the tip of the knife, the tip of the spear. Not very much to do. A lot of paints for not much. Mostly the highlighting will be on the tip of the spear, but the spearhead. But we'll put down some of this. This stuff's I'm not sure if you can still get it. I guess you can. Big bottles, 32 mil. Really, really dark, and it's like a proto speed paint contrast metallic almost, but it's not. I say that in that it's really runs into everything really nicely. It's not thick and globby like some metallics are. Goes on really well. Nice base for a dark metallic base. Gunmetal grey from the metal colour. They're actually airbrush colours, but it does, brushes up just fine. And then I'll go black metal from scale 75, which is actually lighter than that big one. And then thrash metal, crazy names, heavy metal. And I'll just do those as the highlights. I think for metallics, these are still good for me, but they're not as shiny as some of the more modern releases. I mean, I understand a lot of stuff's made for the fantasy and sci-fi market, so it tends to be a bit more intense and bright. But these, I mainly I do paint fantasy, but majority of my stuff is historicals and has been since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. So I tend to look at stuff that's not super bright in terms of colors. People often say, oh, your colors are quite muted and all that sort of stuff, and yeah, and I think that comes from that background of painting mostly historical subjects. Not that I haven't done fantasy stuff, so and I have done a few bright things. But and then for the buckles, where you can see them, and maybe the top of his knife handle, I'll put on a bit of this sort of black gold stuff, negro gold, if you're allowed to say that. Who cares? It's not being stupid. SC71 and elven gold, yeah, scale color. I think, yeah, it'd be interesting to try the new Vallejo ones, and maybe eventually down the line when these are empty, I'll replace them with the new Vallejo metallics, because they sound like they are very, very good. Anyway, I'm going to go and touch up these metallic areas, and then after that, it's the basing and the varnishing. Stuff that I don't really need to show you too much. I can talk about it when it's done, but I'm going to crack on and do this. Okay, here are the completed miniatures. I've taken some stills, which will probably show them in a slightly different light. But yeah, there's the two of them. Now, could I have pushed the highlights further and stuff like that, particularly on the clothing? Yeah, sure, I could have. But these are for my own collection, and they're Levy, and they're not command figures. So if I'm going to be painting more of them, yeah, we don't want it to get too involved. For me, anyway. So there they are. The camera tends to exaggerate the dark and the light, but yes, So yeah, where did I leave you last time? I was doing the metallic. So yeah, you can see it's most noticeable, the spear. And actually, I think that's the only bit that I didn't put the matte varnish on. So that pings a bit more. So let's give him a twirl. There you go. You know, I always find, and I know the feedback I get from other people who see my stuff I've painted like in their own hands, they always look better in person than the camera can ever tell. So yeah, I mean, to my eye, they look a lot better than this. The colours are brighter and the transitions are smoother, but the camera does tell lies. It's not the same as the human eye, that's for sure. So there are the chappies. And hopefully adjusting the lighting wheel. It goes yellow, you see, if I point it too far that way. Yeah. There we go. Ooh, no, there we go. All right, now for this shenanigans. Right, I'm gonna leave everything in, warts and all, for my intro to this series, and hopefully it'll get better and simpler for me as it goes on. There won't be painting on screen per se, but I will try and give you step-by-steps of what I'm up to. Yeah, so I think the next one I might do a mounted sergeant or man-at-arms. I've already started one, but I can tell you about what I've already done, because it isn't a huge amount. I think it's mainly putting a base coat on a horse and stuff. All right, guys, I hope you found this useful. Please, any questions, put them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer. The basing's a fairly simple thing with some Vallejo basing texture, with a couple of dry brushes of colour and then some tufts to follow. Yeah, Vallejo brown black for my rim edges is what I always do for all my stuff. So there you go. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.